One of the things that helps, bro, to be honest with you, is getting everything out of your chest, talking about it. It helps a lot. Are you doing anything, bro, to get better?
Um, so so I actually like when I first got out, and I guess not to like skip ahead that far, but like when I first got out, I had like gone to the VA, talked to them about whatever, and they had like uh to me it was kind of a joke. And the only reason why I say that is because like obviously initially at first like my mindset was already kind of made up, because when we actually came back from that deployment, um I actually went to behavioral health and like went and talked to somebody, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I feel like at that time, I don't know how it is now, but at that time, it was kind of a joke, because it was like you showed up at behavioral health, you sat there on that stupid little computer and filled out all your information, which you wouldn't get filled out by the time the person would come out to get you. So then they're like, oh, yeah, go ahead, take your time, like fill out that information. It's real important, this, that, and the other. So I'm like, okay, as like the first initial scene. And it took me, and you're only slotted for an hour. Like when you go to behavioral health, like you're only slotted for an hour. That's active duty wise. And so, uh, yeah, at that time, so it was like, your first visit, unless you're real fast at typing, at least a half hour of your hour is spent on that computer. And then they start talking to you, and we didn't really get anywhere. So then it was like, okay, I'll come back a second time, because they were like, oh yeah, it'll be much quicker because you've already filled out all the information, blah 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 blah. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it another shot. So then I come back and do the thing, like get in there, we start talking. And I think what put a sour taste in my mouth about it was because of the fact that they it was like n- it wasn't like a conversation. It was just like, well, what do you think? And it was like, that's why I'm here, is to find out what the hell you think is wrong, or like have your perspective on a situation, not just like me sit here and talk and just tell you like what's wrong, because obviously if I knew how to fix it, I wouldn't be here, and that's kind of the whole situation, that I just got to a point where I was like, you know what, forget this. And I just stopped. I stopped doing it on when I was active. Um, because actually
Mhm.
what had led to me doing that, which I mean the only as far as I know, the only person that I've told this to has been my wife. But after we got back from that deployment, I like, because there was, at that time, and there was somebody I was talking to, and like all this other stuff, and things kind of fell through with that. And then eventually, like, I was having issues with like bills and things going on back here, like at home, not more on my like my immediate family side. And then just like that feeling like of being a single soldier in the barracks, like, and you're depressed and all this other stuff. It's a bad combination. Like, it's the worst place to be is in the barracks. And it's like, I actually, you remember where when you're going out the front entrance of Polk, there's that surplus place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. On the right hand side.
Yeah, everybody goes to.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually was driving my car into oncoming traffic, and attempted to just crash my car and just say fuck it. And um, you know, and nobody knew this. Like even after it happened, like the last minute, like I swerved out of the way. And I know there's sometimes where like people are like, like people joke or whatever, where it's like, oh, quitter or whatever, whatever, and like just dumb shit. Like I've been there. Like I've been in that dark spot where you're just like everything just seems pointless. Like you just don't think that you're like it doesn't matter if you're here or you're not. Like no one's gonna miss you. No one cares. Like, everything will just be easier. Like I've been there and it sucks. And in that moment, that split second decision to pull the wheel the other way, like is when I decided to go, to behavioral health. And I didn't even tell anybody why I was going and doing it. Nobody even knew that I had even tried to do that. Like, cause I knew if I said something
Put you on high
that,
risk.
oh yeah, like I would have been on watch and all this
Yeah.
other stuff, probably get kicked out, or whatever, and I just had to, I guess you want to say, pull my own head out of my ass and fix it.
Mhm.
And I tried to go and fix it, but then it was just like going to them. It was a joke. Like the person just didn't even care. And so that's why I was just like, you know what, forget this. And like I can just do it myself and just take care of it. And it was like, sitting there saying, like, you know what, like things will get better. It like uh this it's not the end all be all, like bills and everything else is going to continue on regardless. Like you doing that is not going to change anything. you know like life is still going to carry on. And just like I remember hearing you say before, like, you know the only people that you're hurting is like your family, like everyone else that actually does care. Like those are the people that you're hurting. And but coming from somebody that's been in that situation, like you don't think about those type of things. You don't care because obviously, like, you don't think that anybody else cares. So it's kind of you know like a double-edged sword, I guess you want to say. So, but I had ended up, for other reasons, like when I got out, because I just I had a hard time, like, controlling my anger. Like I was very, like, quick to, like, get upset about things. And from time to time, like, I still have that problem, but I did go and see, like, the VA when I first got out. I went and talked to somebody, sat down with them, and I just kind of feel like I wasn't getting anywhere. And they had, like, prescribed me um some pills. I can't remember what they were called, but it was basically to, like, make it to where, like, uh, not that I didn't care about things, but it was just more of like, oh, it's not that big of a deal.
You feel
Like,
numb. You feel
yeah,
numb. No feelings. Yeah.
yeah, like there was like nothing. And I took it, like the first time I took it, the first one I took, like I immediately felt it. I was just like, oh, okay. Like, no big deal, or whatever. And then, but then as I kept doing, like, taking it, like, prescribed, um, it wasn't like, I could almost feel like it wasn't working. So then they actually were like, and I told them, I was like, hey, I think, this isn't really like sticking with what you say it's supposed to do. And they were like, well, we'll up the dosage. I was like, okay. They upped it 2 times. They upped the dosage twice because it had the same effect. Like, it would work, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't work. It would just, like, it was like it wore off. Like, I just became, my body initially just, like, was like, "Oh, this is new." But it just took it in, and then it just was like, oh, it's like candy, you know. And so that's why, like, and then eventually, like, I just stopped taking it. I told them, I was like, just take me off of this stuff. I'm not even gonna waste my time. I was like, the therapist isn't helping. And I'm not gonna sit there and become addicted to pills
Yeah.
because because you just want to keep like shoveling stuff in and test stuff out. So I said forget it, and I just didn't bother to like go to the VA. Like, I have like a representative and stuff. Everybody ends up, if you do go through the VA and you get set up, there's like a liaison that gets assigned to you, and they like call you on like a monthly basis, to check on you, see what resources you need, if there's anything you need help with, blah 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 blah. And I just kept telling her, I was like, there's nothing I need. I was like, honestly, I'll figure it out on my own. And yeah, I mean, it's been, because I got out in 2018, and yeah, I mean, just ever since, like, I just did it on my own. I just really worked on myself to try and like curb being so easily like set off, and um just all of it in general. It hasn't been easy, but you know, it
But
I feel
you got options, bro. Like whenever I first got out, I didn't wanna get help until like you say, anger issues. I lost it. I lost it with my daughters. It was bad. When I started going, I went and I told him I need help. I need to see a psychiatrist right now. And the first visit, my wife went with me. And to be honest with you, this is the most interaction that my wife knows about me being in the military. Because I never told him anything. Like I
Mhm.
always stay quiet. I really don't talk about it. People that we deploy together with, we talk about it. And one day she overheard me talking to, can't remember who it was. We got drunk. When you get drunk, things happen.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit too much,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's when she find out like some of the shit that I seen, some of the shit that I did, and she like, why you never talk to me, about this? Like because it's not your, it's not your burn to carry. This is me. Like I
Yeah.
did this. So she went to the first my first sit with the psychiatrist. She was next to me, and it was really hard, bro. It was really hard. And then it got to the point that I was seeing my psychiatrist every 2 weeks. And I told her like, look, if I'm gonna do this, I need to be able to open up completely, and I cannot have you listen to my shit. Right there. I need to do this shit on my own.
Mm,
Whenever I went in, bro, the same. They were trying to give me pills. I hate pills. I don't like to be addicted to anything. Like I like having control of my body. If I say,
right.
man, I'm not gonna drink this today. I'm gonna drink water. I don't want to keep drinking that because my body wants it. The same with pills. Like I never took pills. She's like, look, I can prescribe you this. I don't want it. I want this. I
Right.
want to talk. I want you to listen, and then you tell me what can I do to fix it. So I spent 2 years, bro. 2 years straight with the psychiatrist. We went from every 2 weeks, to every 3 weeks, then to once a month, to every 6 weeks. And the last time I just called her like, look, you know what? I'm really good. Like, thank you for everything. Like, I don't think, I don't want you to forget about me, but it's like I don't think I need you no more. Like, I got this shit under control. I
Right.
think you should. I think you should give him a second chance, bro. Like, tell him you don't want to know that shit. You want a psychiatrist, bro. Talk to him because he helps. The psychiatrist that I had, she was also a veteran. She was an Air Force veteran, so she knew a little bit because she dealt with a lot of all the combat arms. She had them, so she knew a lot about. the shit that we went through.
Right.
She knew about like we cannot complain, we cannot go to sea call because we look like a bitch if you do something like that. So
Right.
she knew like a lot of that. So I felt good talking to her. So to me, bro, like I'm glad, man. I have forgot about behavioral health to be honest with you on the active duty. Um, I didn't use them. I The way I dealt with it, bro, is like it's stupid, but it's like you mentioned Siren Capon. I was like, man, Siren Capon, Siren Bearden, Siren Fleet, Siren Hernandez, Siren Lopez, all these guys had done more shit that I did, and I say something, they're gonna think I'm a bitch. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? That was my mentality. Like I can't tell anybody anything, so I kept everything to me. Like and the first couple of months, it was the hardest ones to adjust coming back because now I got somebody sleeping with me. Now I got kids waking up in the middle of the night crying. So
Right.
now it's like I'm adjusting to that shit. I was like by myself for so long that you gotta adjust. And she noticed it, man. I punched my wife in the face one time because she trying to wake me up, and like I was in a deep sleep, and my mind I was back over there. So whenever she touched me, like I reacted, bro. Like somebody was like trying to get me. Like my mentality was like I was over there, like somebody trying to get me, and I just started swinging, and like
Yeah.
when she cried, like damn, like what the heck happened? So I knew I was not good. Like but it's like I was like, look, I'm sorry, just let me work with it, like through it, man, bro. Fuck this shit, fucking hits.
Mhm.
Because he took me back to my shit. So it's like I think you should give him a second chance, bro. Go to BA, get a psychiatrist, bro. Talk to him. Talking helps. Man, sorry, we
No, you're
this shit
good,
fucking.
man. I mean, honestly,
Um,
and it, and I agree with you on like going back to them. Like there are some times where I think about it, like going back, and
are you getting
um,
any benefits from them?
yeah, yeah. I ended up getting a like 90. I was like 90%
Okay.
disability rating. Um, because so actually, well, first off, like I think for me, like my biggest support, like through it all, and I think probably for you too, has been my wife. I mean, like just being able to just communicate and actually like get to that point of just opening up about like a lot of this stuff. I think helped more, obviously. I mean, that's the person that I'm around 24/7, and it's like if I can't rely or be able to in a way kind of like have her take that like a little bit of that weight that we feel like off my shoulders. I'm not saying that like and she won't ever understand that feeling that that I had, but it's like the same thing that I could do with the psychiatrist, like that's pretty much what I do with my wife,
Yeah.
and I feel like that to me has been like the biggest help. But but yeah, in the respect of like the disability situation, um yeah, I've got uh like because I have like sleep apnea, like I ended up which
No,
I
as
didn't
long
even
as
know
you,
I
as long as they taking care of you, bro. That's all. That's all they gotta. I don't. We don't have to go into details, but it's like that's one of the things that I always ask because I didn't know anything about the VA when I first got out. I
mm,
didn't know anything about the benefits that we were supposed to get. I didn't know about the resources that we had. So
mhm,
I had to learn everything. By myself or people telling me about it. We got a couple of
mm,
comments, bro. Let me go through the comments real quick.
yeah,
Yo Cardenas, that's my girl. I'm just happy you have something to help you. Others heal from the inside. We got Loco Siete. Learning to talk will always help. Doesn't have to be a counselor, just someone you trust and will listen. That's right, Loco.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I was talking to one of my friends, and it's funny to me like how you go to at the beginning, I used to go to bars a lot, right?
Hmm.
But I never talk about any of the shit that we did. But I see a lot of people to talk about like, oh man, I did this, oh man, I did that, and I just laugh. Like I don't say anything because to me, I learned that people that talk the most is the ones that didn't do shit. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, sometimes with all the shit that we did, you don't want to fucking relive that shit, and
Yeah.
it's just funny to me, bro. But it's again, I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad you got your wife. Uh Man, sometimes I keep shit like I keep shit inside me into this right here. This fucking helps. This helps. And
Yeah, man.
that's the reason why I open up this. Because we all need a safe place and you know, we don't I don't see the military as a bad. I see it as a little bit of everything. Because the same way that we did shit that we did, we also gain extended family. We also gain more brothers. It's
Right.
like we also had good times. So it's like it's a little bit of both, bro. I'm just glad that people still here, people still reaching out. Um, you know, if I how can I tell you? I hope this right here helps other people. This is my main goal, bro. Like whenever you open it up like that, I didn't even think about behavioral health whenever we got back from deployment. I
Hmm.
just suck it up. Like that's something that it didn't even cross my mind until you say something right now.
Yeah.
Um,
I sought it. I sought it out just because I was like, man, like after that whole situation, like attempting, I guess you want to say attempted suicide, that it was just like, um, I've never, I literally, I never thought that I would ever like be in that situation. Like, you never think that you're going to be in that situation. Like, you always constantly tell yourself like, no, I'm stronger than that, like, you know and it's like, even, just, and maybe not everybody, like, but I know that deep down there are times where people, like, if you watch the news or whatever, and like, you see somebody that like killed themselves or whatever, that it's like the first thought a lot of the times is like, well, that was stupid, like, why'd you do that, or whatever. And it's like, you and you're like, well, I'd never do that, like, I never thought that I'd ever be in that type of a situation.
yeah,
And it was literally just went for a drive. Like, it started off as just me, like, I got to get out of the room. I need to, like, just get out of the space, because I was literally sitting in the barracks room. I was sharing a room with Greyhawk.
mm,
Uh, and yeah, I got in my car and went for a drive. That is how it really started. I didn't even think about it. And then in that split second, I was just like, this would be easier. And I just moved over. And there was no, like, there it was like that, because you know how you always drove down it, there was always gaps. Like, there
yeah,
would be like a flood and then nothing and then a flood. And it was just like, I just moved over and I just kept going straight. And then all of a sudden I just swerved out of the way the last minute, and I was just like, what the hell am I doing? And like, so, but I mean, that's definitely something, because like, you know seeing like what you're doing, is as soon as I started watching some of these videos that you've been putting out, uh, it was something that I wanted to, you know, not that I obviously I've said something about it, but like none of you have ever,
Nah,
nobody knew, nobody knew, and so I just thought like what like I'll put it out there and just realize like that I guess if it helps somebody to see it and like see this and realize like things things do get better, whatever it is that's going on. It might seem like a big deal at that moment, but that's just what it is. It's a moment, like it doesn't last forever. Like, and there's gonna be another side. Like
yeah.
there's light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you want to say. So, but yeah, so I like uh but yeah, I ended up, you know, going through all that, but it's funny because I didn't realize, because when I got out, the process was different. They actually require you to sit down with the DAV and as part of your out processing, and they're the ones that essentially set you up with all of like they go down the list, like the whole list of like what you can claim, and they're just like, what about this, what about that, whatever. And I mean, you could mark them all if you wanted to, and they'll set you up with appointments, and you can actually request, which anybody that watches this, I can tell you this much: do not, and I repeat, do not, uh when you do your appointments, do not do the appointments on post. Make sure that when you do it, that you have them set up your appointments with off post uh doctors or whoever. Everything, have all your appointments off post, because you're getting an unbiased opinion on what's wrong with you. Because just like all of us know that, like, when you went, even if you did go, like, for instance, like, I remember when we were at Polk, like, getting, like, when we would have to get the flu shot, right? Never failed. Every time I got the flu shot, I would get the flu. And I would go, I would go I went to sick hall one time, and I was like, I cannot, like, I was sick. And it was like, well, you still show up to formation, like sick or not, like you still show up, you still got to do that 4 mile run or whatever. And you're like coughing and just snot coming out of your nose and all this stuff. But I remember going to sick hall, and it's like they didn't have anything, even though you could go to like Walmart and get stuff, to, take care of you for the flu. But it was like, oh, here's an ibuprofen and drink water. Like, I know that's like the ongoing joke, but I mean, that's for
That
real.
is.
Like, that's what it was. Like, it was like, there wasn't anything. It wasn't like, oh, here's some Theraflu or something, like, just anything. They didn't, it was like, and then there was no, obviously no sick days or anything like that. It was just like you had to suck it up, and sick or not, like you were working, you know. But yeah, like, and that's another thing too. Like, that was definitely frowned upon a lot, which, and I'm guilty of it too, because you get caught up in just that, like, hua, like we're all badasses, and stuff like that, and nothing can touch us. And when somebody goes to sick hall, it's like, oh, the sick hall rangers, they're out there,
Yes.
and everything. But now, don't get me wrong, there were some of them that it's just like, okay, like, you're milking it for
It's
sure,
because some people used to milk it, bro. Like for us, like we used to, you had to suck it up. Like you had to suck it up. I remember after we had a road march, and I had a big old blister. I got a pic. I don't know if I got the picture, but at the bottom of my ankle, everything was a big old blister. So I cut the skin around, and I just put a patch,
That
like a
the
plastic patch.
moleskin.
Yeah, yeah. So I just put it up, and I went to the rock march like that, and I came back, and I told my wife, can you please take my boot off because I was bleeding. And she like, why are you walking like this? Like, because I ain't no bitch. And we drew like a little face and shit with the smiley face. And she's like, you so stupid. I was like, look, man, if I go to see car, they're gonna be talking shit. So I
Yeah,
couldn't go like, and I was just like limping. But he's like, I was trying to like, not limp in front of people. Like, just like, yeah, bro, it was bad. And it just because we don't wanna look weak. That's the stupidest thing ever. Cause now,
yeah,
shit, everything hurts, bro.
right. And I think like that's kind of like what I was getting at is the fact that it's like if it's a legit reason, like go. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like if you're milking it just because you don't want to go on that run or whatever, like yeah, that was kind of a BS move. But the one thing that I did learn is that it's like those trips to the aid station documented every single time when you went in there, and that's what shows up on your record when you go to do your
Zero,
claims. Like,
nothing on it,
and
nothing.
that's
I didn't
why
have nothing.
and that's what makes it difficult for a lot of people because it's like it's so drilled into you, like you don't need to go to sick call, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. But at the end of the day, those trips to the sick hall, every single thing is documented on your record under your social. So when you go and they're documenting those things and you go and claim, like for me, for instance, like with the sleep apnea situation, I didn't even know I had it. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure I had sleep apnea before I even joined the military, but I didn't know that I had it. And it was when we were coming back. I can't remember the sergeant, but I was sleeping on my bunk, and he came walking by and he kicked me, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Uh, no, because you just woke me up." Like, and he's like, "No, you weren't breathing." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm breathing now. Like, I don't understand what you're getting at." And he's like, you need when we get back, you need to put in an appointment to go get tested for sleep apnea. And I was like, the hell's that? And he's like, you stop breathing when you sleep. And I was like, okay. So then I, go and get checked out and everything. Come to find out, so they have it on a scale. Which do you have sleep apnea?
I do, but I don't give a fuck. I'm an
Okay.
idiot.
Well,
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm an
because I,
idiot. I'm supposed to.
'cause-
I went to get tested, and they're like, you need to get the machine, and like, it's a possibility that you can die sleeping. And I
yeah.
mean,
So
fuck
they
it, it's
have it.
okay. I like we all snore because I was like, man, we all snore. We fine. And like, no, you
Mhm.
gotta get the machine. And nah, I'm good.
Yeah, because
I'm
they
an
have
idiot.
it. So how they have it is they have it on a scale. How they rate, like how they determine your severity, is on a scale from 1 to 6. And I'm actually a double severe. Like I'm a 12. Like I literally, what happens is like my lower jaw drops. Like my whole face, my whole head becomes so relaxed while I sleep that my jaw drops down, pinches off, and then I still have my tonsils. And so those relax and close in. And then I can't remember something else. Oh, I think it's like your tongue or something. And yeah, all of that combined. And like so I got tested and everything like that, and they gave me a machine, and that was a whole nother roller coaster of a situation, because I mean now it's like more high tech. It's all, based off of like the cell towers. Like they don't it used to be that there was a little memory chip, like a memory card that you had to put into the machine. And when you used it, it would record all of your sleep, like for how long you did it for, like when you had like an episode or whatever. But what they don't tell you is that, like, well, for one, they didn't even tell me I had a memory card. So like I was using it and it wasn't recording anything. And and anyways, but yeah, so they yeah, it's just it's one of those things where like when it comes to that whole situation, you definitely need to like if it's a legit situation that you have, like go to the aid station, like, don't worry about what anybody thinks. I mean, I know it's kind of like day late and a dollar short, like I'm sure nowadays they probably go because they fucking stubbed their toe. But, you know, but it's like, it was definitely one of those things where you needed to do that because that's what was going to help you when you went to get out. And
Hey, so do you get out of Fort Polk or do you move out of Polk?
um yeah, no, I ended up I it's funny because so I had like at that time because I was at Polk for like 5 years, and I like for the longest time I was like I want to get the hell out of here, like I I hate it here, like it's boring, like there's nothing to do, you're in the middle of nowhere, and the closest place is like Alexandria, which is like 45 minutes away.
It's nothing.
And and I was like, man, I gotta get out of here. And I remember like Sergeant do you remember Sergeant Cartwright?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember him showing up to the unit, and we were like talking and stuff, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I was he was like uh he was really talking, good about Fort Carson in Colorado. And I was like, man, like that'd be great. Like that's perfect because the only military post that's here in Arizona is Fort Huachuca, and it's like
Oh yeah.
down in Tucson, but it's an intelligence base. So it's like there's no scouts. So I was like, well, what's the closest place that I can get to be able to be close enough to home to where I'm not having to spend an arm and a leg to fly home and all this other stuff. And yeah, so like the first time, which I think like on the pictures, like the first time I had enlisted was the one when I was standing in front of Blackfoot, and I had tried to get a different duty station. And at that time, just like everybody else, it was like, oh, well, we're over strength, so you can't go anywhere. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll stay here. I was like, is there anything like can I get a bonus? Because I didn't get a bonus when I signed. Like initially, when I first got in to the military, there was no bonus at all. And so I was like, okay, well, is there like a bonus maybe? Like, and they were like, no, there's no bonus. And I was like, okay, well, can I get a school? And they were like, you can get a high five, basically, is what they told me, like, and I was like, okay, whatever. I don't care. Like, I'm still going to get a paycheck. Like, that's all I'm really concerned about. So I ended up staying. And then the second time that I had re-enlisted, um, was I had finally got Carson and ended up going to Carson to, what was it? It was like one 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 fifth or something like that. I can't even remember what the unit was. But let me just say the grass isn't always greener on the other side. That's for sure.
I always wanted. My first duty station was gonna be Carson, and I got last minute. I got change of orders to Fort Polk, and everybody, because I remember everybody saying that Carson was the best unit that you can go to. Like that was the main thing. Like you went from the best to the bottom of the fucking to the shithole of the
R-
army.
Right.
Yeah.
So I learned the secret with the army because, like, obviously, we all know, like, with the Air Force and stuff like that, like, they just get all these like stellar locations and stuff. But I figured out once I got to Carson, now there were some people like that I met there, which, oh man, and that's like that's a whole nother story too. Like I've got so many memories because it's like even the people that have already like you've already talked to, I mean, besides the master sergeant, I mean, it's funny because I saw all these people, like even including Wilson, like I remember seeing him when he was a PFC. Like when we first got back from Afghanistan, I remember him being on rear detachment, and you know, and he was like the coolest dude. And I was just like, so it's just funny because it's like seeing all these guys that I was like at one point, like, you know, I may not have been like a direct like leader to any of these people or whatever, but it's like I do know them and I have seen them like progress, and then like seeing like where they're at now with some of them that are still in, that it's just like all right, cool. Like, you guys like kept on going and, like made it happen. And but yeah, um, but definitely what I learned by going to Carson is that the shittier the location, the better the unit, and the better the place that the that you're stationed, the worse the unit is what I learned. Because like at Polk, for instance, like how everybody had like those boot blouses, like those
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
green
yeah, yeah.
little green clips, and like everybody always had them. Like I always remember because I had gotten hemmed up about it when I got to Carson. I got hemmed up about it that they're like, soldier, like, your boot blouse is supposed to be like, I think it's like below the first, above the second, like halfway, or it's like an inch and a half. Like basically each dot on your, like where you put your shoelace, like, that's how you measure it. And it's supposed to be in this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like sitting there and like, obviously I still showed respect and everything. And I fixed it right there on the spot, and stuff like that. But I just thought about it and I was like, man, back at Polk, like, not saying that we didn't have standards by any means, but there was more priority put towards training
Yeah.
than how not, and again, like I said, like, yes, you still needed to be presentable, but it was more important that you knew your job than how you looked. Like if you had your boot blouse like, below the second and between the second and third or whatever, like anybody that got the boot blouses always had it in kind of the same spot.
All the
And
way high.
they would always buy a size bigger pants so that it was like the look, of how
Yeah.
it looked and how it sat when you had a bigger size pair of pants, and all of that. Man, as soon as I got to Carson, it was like to the T, because when anybody like Carson, Fort Hood, stuff like that, those are the places that people associate with the army. So it's like they're in the spotlight all the time. Like when I was there was like news trucks all the time doing little like just snippets outside of the gates, like, videotaping and stuff like that. So it's like it's all about the appearance. But then the training,
Nothing.
I was like I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. It's going to be a striker. It was a striker unit that I went to. And like when I showed up there, so when I was at Polk, before I left Polk, I was a corporal. And obviously it only stays within that unit. So it didn't move with me. So when I went over to Carson, I became a specialist again. And so when I got there, obviously I have my deployment patch. And yeah, I showed up there and there was like sergeants, staff sergeants, never been deployed, like nothing. And I'm like, okay, and it wasn't anything like to disrespect them, but just like that's kind of like telltale of like, okay, like I know I know you know what you're doing, and it's just kind of like that's how I associated it. Is like, okay, you know what you're doing and this and that. And the last time when I showed up there, they hadn't had orders to deploy in over, I think it was like 4 or 5 years. And so, they were just constantly just doing training, and you can tell that it was like just going through the motions because the first training exercise that I went out with them on, I was originally I was supposed to be the driver. They were going to put me as a driver, and I was like, I don't have a license for a striker. Like I wouldn't even begin to tell you how to drive it.
Yeah.
And so they made me a dismount. First field exercise that we went to, I did not dismount one time. I didn't even get out of the striker. The only time I got out of the striker was when we were like not doing anything, like when like you index and you're just sitting around doing nothing, you know. Other than that, I didn't do anything. And I was like, okay, I was like, are like, do you guys not do dismount operations like at all? Like, and they're not really. They were like, no, we just pretty much stay on the truck. And I'm like, you realize like when you get deployed, like there are no strikers. Like it's all MRAPs, MAT Vs, you know, all that type of stuff. And like you're gonna have to get out. Like you're not gonna just sit in the truck the whole time. And, it was just like I actually like some of the people liked me and then some of the people ended up hating me and they looked at me as like a problem, which was funny because it was just like when I was at Polk, like like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I knew everything because I didn't. Like I didn't know my job inside and out, as much as I would have liked to, but I still knew what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was squared away, and I didn't feel like I was like, I guess you want to say one of the shitbag soldiers, like, and then to go here and basically be looked at as like this, like, shitbag specialist, or whatever, that's just negative and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'm not being negative. Like, I'm just pointing out the fact that you guys have flaws, like, and you need to work on it. And it was like, nobody wanted to listen. And I was like, okay, fine, And so they ended up making me the first sergeant driver. Because that was the only Humvee that they had because I was licensed for that. And
Yeah.
so it was just like the tarp and everything. And it was like my experience immediately just put in my mind, I was like, I'm getting the fuck out. Like, I'm not staying in. I'm getting the
Damn, that's
hell out.
crazy.
Like, because I was just like, and then being the first sergeant driver, which the first sergeant at that time when I showed up, man, he was more interested in the fact that he had a Jaguar than like the fact of sometimes it felt like than him actually being a first sergeant. Like he was in, but I understand because he was in the mode of retiring, and so when that all happened, there was another person that stepped in, and I was his driver, and he was cool as shit, like, and we just kicked back, and I mean, he was like, it was like being around somebody like Sergeant First Class Capon. It was like seeing Capon all over again. And like this dude's like sitting here, smoking Marlboro Reds and shit in the Humvee, and like just kicking back, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to take a nap, like go ahead, whatever." He's like, "We're gonna go pick up Chow here in a little bit." Like that's pretty much what my job was. Like once I got to Carson, was just like driving him around out on the thing, like on the lanes, and then going and picking up Chow. And I was just like, "That's fine." Like
That was chill.
I, yeah, I mean, I was just like, I felt like because you know, I felt like I was, I had a purpose when I was at Polk. And when I got there, it was just like it was just a joke, like I just was like, fuck it. I was like, all right, like you think I'm this big shitbag? I can I you're asking like I can be a shitbag, that's fine. Like I didn't go like I didn't go fully or anything, but it was just like you don't like you're not you don't want to pick my brain and help you with all these privates that know nothing, and you're like giving them the wrong answer. Like before I got there, they had so many incidences. Like there was like people that had been killed on post in training exercises there.
Oh
Like
shit.
one, like even at their unit they had a striker that they uh I don't know if the driver fell asleep or whatever, but they fucking rolled off a cliff, like the striker, and it
Yeah.
rolled and somebody died. Like that was before I got there, but it was just like, like just lackadaisical. It's just like, you know, just poor training and worrying about appearance more than you're worrying about what you're doing, because just because you're not getting deployed, there could always be a time that you're going to end up getting deployed. You guys are active duty, like you need to be ready, and they just didn't. They just didn't care, and we ended up.
I think that would be a hard transition going from a unit that all we do is fucking train. Even when we don't got shit to do with training on something. And if you're not
Hmm.
training, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember for us, it was only Mondays. That was like you got your best uniform on Monday, because that's your inspection day.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, you fucking fresh, clean, fucking Monday. But bro, that's a different monster, bro. That's a different
It is.
monster.